It's based on their fear of being castigated by society, having sticks and stones thrown at them, worried about getting hurt with words, as to why they don't move forward. It's that, quote, politically correct doctrine of tolerance or one thing or another that people fall into. And when they fall into it, they're really not being true to themselves, like Shakespeare says, to be true to thyself. I mean, they're rather conforming outwardly to what society would hold as true and just, and society changes.
One thing you told me was that as far as things like Supreme Court decisions, what our government's doing, you'd said to me one time, as citizens, we're actually required to some extent, maybe to a large extent, to know what's come out of Supreme Court decisions that affects our status as citizens and things like that. We're supposed to know what our government's up to.
And not only read the Supreme Court decisions, but read the dissent. Because a lot of times the dissent will reveal on the true nature or true thought process, and sometimes they actually spell it out for you. And when the whole thing gets back to what I said just a while ago, verbicide. We have to know what terms mean, and words change over time.
Exactly.
Just like the King James Bible. People go, well, it says this thing or that thing. Well, some of those words used back then meant a different thing than they do now. Okay?
Right.
Like without doesn't mean lacking, it means outside of, like outside of the gates, without the gate. So you got to understand what these terms mean, and we have dictionaries and other sources to track this, like the Oxford English Dictionary and the Strong's Concordance, and even Noah's Webster's 1828 dictionary is a good reference point, and literature during those times to see how they used it and read the whole context in place, instead of just placing your modern definition what you think that word means, or your modern definitions what you're told the law is. Actually go search it out for yourself.
Well, let's look at the term income. All right, I would say, I'm guessing, I hear it on the radio, most people believe income is the money that you earn through your labor.
A lot of people falsely believe that.
Why? Okay. And I'm focusing on this mainly for the tax issues, and we all know that no matter how right you are,
mm-hmm.
the government will go and prosecute you on their way, and it's up to you to, no matter how many mistakes, how wrong they may be,
mm-hmm.
it's stacked in their favor. You like that one?
It's pretty decent, yeah.
It's damn decent. Okay.
I haven't had a chance to review it. We've been talking, but we're in brief moment.
All right.
A little bit of an ashy taste, and I'm having light background notes of like a burnt espresso. Not a strong espresso taste, but kind of how, like when you go by the coffee factories and you smell burnt coffee. I'm picking that up on my palate. Not a real heavy coffee or espresso tone, but hint of nut, but it's burnt, and you can taste it's more like a coffee or cocoa kind of taste. And
what about spice?
It has a broad,
Yeah.
It's not pinpointed spice like on the center of a dartboard, but it's a broad spectrum of tentacles poking out there as far as spice is concerned. And 3 or 4 different flavors, not intense, not weak, a nice steady broad spectrum of spice. So I'm sorry for digressing.
No, that's kind of, I just remember a little bit more spice out of that cigar rather than a burnt coffee type.
The other ones that I smoked before were like that. The last several ones that I've had, it hasn't been like the ones that were before. I don't know what happened in stores or anything anyway. So,
all right. Well, back to the idea of income. All right. And it's hard to tie all this together, but I think you're exactly right with the verbicide, because
that's how they kill you in courts.
I agree with you. Let's stick with this for a second. There was an attorney, Thomas Cryer,
Yes.
who
Louisiana.
in Louisiana looked up the law, decided that he was not liable for so-called income taxes, and he quit filing for a number of years.
He went to court and won.
So the government, as they're wont to do, sir, you didn't file. He says, I basically, through diligent study, have seen that I'm not liable.
You should download Thomas Cryer's brief. It's on the internet.
Okay.
Download. Look.
I think anybody should do that.
Yeah, probably they should if they want to know the truth. Search Thomas Cryer, Louisiana, attorney, IRS. There's a site. You can download his brief. It's very informative. Read that. Study the.
Was that the brief that went to the court, or?
Yeah. Oh, awesome! It's awesome.
I looked it up right after I heard he was on the radio talking. But basically, he went in and was acquitted by a federal jury. Was not allowed to bring any evidence into court.
They don't want you to bring it.
Was not allowed, other than his own testimony. Yeah. And he said, as knowledgeable as I am, and I brought as my own attorney a guy that's more knowledgeable than me, it was a close call. We could have got.
I concur.
We could have got screwed, but we were fortunate to be acquitted by a federal jury. His argument was essentially the argument that income is clearly defined through the courts as a profit or a gain.
Corporate
profit or a gain. And again, and I heard this the other day, if somebody's willing to pay you $200,000 a year, for example, chances are you're worth more than that. You probably left some money on the table.
Right.
So you could argue that you had a loss. But again, that applies to corporations. It's artificial entities that have gains or losses. Or, for example, you may disagree with me on this. I think if you have a house that appreciates in value and you sell it, you've had a gain. But you may disagree with me on that. Okay, because you didn't do anything to earn that money. This thing sat there, appreciated in value, and you sold it at a gain.
But did it appreciate in value based on a false perception of what reality and money is, or whatnot? Because if you really look at the trend of valuable, like in the past when we had real money here in the country, based on the gold and silver standard, and you track it, it basically stayed pretty much flat because it held its value. And it was only until the Monopoly Men, which is a good book, and there's some videos on YouTube and
the Monopoly Men.
Monopoly Men. There's several other videos about the bankers and how they manipulate things, and they purposely depress the, in my opinion, the gold and the silver to gain their agenda as far as funny money is concerned. Yeah, I don't want to get off on that track either, but it all has to do with your perception, because that money only has value as long as the public perceives that it does, period. And it's based on a fraud, a fiction. Actually, we can buy them out. I believe it's $600 million. We can buy the federal.
I think it's 400. I just read the other day.
You just read the other day, 400?
$400 million.
I thought it was 600 million. It's been so long since I've looked at that stuff. It might be.
Which was the original investment of the stockholders, which is what we could buy them out.
Yeah, but I believe you might be right, but I believe it is 600. Seems for whatever reason.
Well, we'll say in that area.
So yeah, less than
$500 million.
Yeah, less $500 million less than that. We can buy them out per contract, unless they've done some kind of other shady things. But well, anyway, essentially. You know, except for Andrew Jackson, all the presidents have not lived up to their full potential. As far as, for whatever reason, you could argue. I don't want to get into it too, but I don't want to digress on that thing. There's so many directions we could go with it.
Real on this, let's say a couple of things. I was looking. I had a catalog the other day, saw had a bunch of old currency in it, and I didn't realize, I knew that it said, redeemable in silver or gold or whatever, but the old currency is even more specific. It says, this note guarantees that there has been deposited in the U period S period Treasury $1 in gold or in silver. So those old notes were they were proper. They were,
I got rid of a couple of those old notes like that just recently.
well, some of those appeared to be pretty damn valuable from those from what I saw.
I'll buy something just as valuable. Emma.